Early retirement? Isn't Ralph the most incompetent one, the perfect candidate? I just stared at my colleague, whose face seemed to suggest this was the consensus. As if in response to those words, the room began to stir. Yeah, Ralph has the worst performance after all. I feel bad for him, but if he volunteers here. It was supposed to be an ordinary morning meeting. But the moment Howard, the department head, brought up the topic of early retirement, the room became chaotic, and my name was thrown into the mix. Judging by everyone's reactions, it was clear I was the one they wanted gone. Ralph, your name has come up. What do you think? Howard's words felt like they were pushing for an answer. I made up my mind. I'll quit. Howard smirked, and the others looked relieved. But don't come begging me for help later. Yes, by the time they regret it, it will already be too late. And Howard will come to realize this firsthand. Ha! Another failed attempt. What should I do? It was early afternoon in the business district. Walking sluggishly among the bustling businessmen, I, Ralph, made my way back. It was on my way home from a company I had visited for a sales pitch. I really appreciate all your help, Ralph, but I'm sorry about this deal. I recalled the words of the representative from today's client and let out a long sigh. How many losses does this make now? Hey, Ralph. Looking all dejected again. Didn't go well, huh? Standing before me was a sharply dressed, handsome man. It was Arthur, my colleague. He's the so-called elite, holding the top performance record in our company's sales department. Arthur. Don't sound so pathetic. Just keep trying, right? You're known for your persistence in sticking around the sales department no matter how many times you fail. He said that while patting me on the shoulder. That's Arthur for you, mixing sarcasm into his words of comfort. Yeah, you're right. Exactly. Why don't you head back to the office and tidy up those scattered documents to clear your mind? As for me, I'm off to my next client. They already like me, so this one's another sure win. And with that, he walked off confidently. As Arthur said, he'll probably land another deal. Arthur is the nephew of Howard, the head of the sales department, and it's obvious to everyone that he's being favored. All the projects he handles are guaranteed wins, carefully allocated by his uncle, Howard. That's how he's maintained the top spot in sales since he joined. As long as Howard remains in power, Arthur's position is untouchable. I originally hoped to join the development department. However, there were no openings for new hires in development when I joined, so I was assigned to sales instead. It was obvious to anyone that a timid and soft-spoken person like me wasn't cut out for sales. In reality, when visiting clients, I could chat freely about non-work topics, but the moment it came to discussing contracts, my words would falter. I've submitted transfer requests to the development department many times, but they've always been denied. Just hang in there a little longer. The day will come when your efforts pay off. Taking Howard's words to heart, I kept trying, but success continued to elude me. I'm just not suited for sales. But I'll try one more time. I'll land at least one deal. And then I'll request a transfer to development again. Standing in front of the office building, I gazed at the floor where the development department was located and steeled my resolve. I heard Ralph failed to land another deal. Yeah, completely. Honestly, how many times does this make it? He's utterly useless. One day in the break area, Howard, the head of the sales department, let out a sigh. Arthur grinned smugly. You're the one keeping that deadweight around in your department instead of transferring him elsewhere. Well, even deadweight has its uses. With that, Howard gave a sly smile. He covers for your mistakes, and having the lowest performer on the team makes your own results shine even brighter. Tossing his empty coffee can into the trash, Howard shot Arthur a knowing grin. We need him here to keep working for your sake, Arthur. And once he's served his purpose, we can discard him anytime. Ah, Uncle, you're such a bad guy. Anything for my favorite nephew. Their unpleasant laughter echoed through the empty break area. A few days later, though unusual for the season, a new employee was assigned to the sales department. Hello. I'm Yvonne, recently transferred from the development department. I have no experience in sales, but I'll do my best. I look forward to working with you all. The entire sales department buzzed as Yvonne introduced herself beside Howard. A transfer at this time of year? That's rare. From the development department, huh? She must be brilliant. And she's gorgeous. Working with her is going to be amazing. Whispers filled the room. Yvonne certainly had a graceful and strikingly beautiful presence. It was easy to understand why everyone was captivated by her. Even Arthur couldn't take his eyes off her. Now, as for Yvonne's mentor, I'll take the role. Before Howard could finish, Arthur raised his hand with extraordinary enthusiasm. Everyone froze in shock as Arthur began speaking at full speed. As the top performer in the sales department, I am the best choice to train Yvonne. No one but me can truly recognize and nurture her obvious intelligence. As he reached out to take Yvonne's hand, something unexpected happened. No, thank you. I'd like Ralph to be my mentor. Completely ignoring Arthur, Yvonne rushed to stand before me and bowed deeply. Ralph, I look forward to working with you. What? Wait. I couldn't grasp the situation and panicked. Even more confused was Arthur. He stood there in shock at the sudden turn of events, but as Yvonne moved to stand in front of me, he seemed to snap back to reality. Why Ralph? He's the lowest performer in the sales department. There's nothing he can teach you. No. I joined this company because I admire Ralph. That's why I absolutely want him to mentor me. Yvonne's words, cutting off Arthur, shocked not only me but everyone in the room. Admire me? It must be some kind of mistake, I thought, but the look in Yvonne's eyes told me she was completely sincere. Ignoring the tense and buzzing atmosphere of the department, Yvonne turned to face Howard. Howard, I would like Ralph to be my mentor. Is that all right? Sure. Ralph has the time, and since that's what you want, I don't see any problem with it. Perhaps overwhelmed by Yvonne's determination, Howard quickly agreed to her request. Arthur looked like he had something to say, but since the mentor had been decided, the meeting was adjourned. Yvonne, I look forward to working with you. Like Arthur said, I'm not great at sales, so there's probably not much I can teach you. But feel free to ask if you need anything. I felt a wave of self-loathing as I said it. Why would you say that? You may not have strong sales results, but that doesn't mean you're a failure as a person. Really? I'm happy to hear you say that, but honestly, I'm shy and not good at talking, so I'm not sure how much I can really teach you. Even if you're shy or not great at speaking, Ralph, you have so many other wonderful qualities. I see each of them as part of what makes you unique. I would never belittle someone for their individuality. Yvonne, thank you. I'm truly happy to be working with you, Ralph. Please take good care of me moving forward. Yvonne smiled warmly. It had been a long time since someone said something that made me feel truly seen, and I couldn't help but smile back. As her mentor, I started teaching Yvonne where documents were stored, basic procedures, and tips for sales visits. She picked things up quickly and mastered her tasks in no time. Her rapid growth was so remarkable that I felt she wouldn't need my help for much longer. Between training sessions, we often had lively conversations, whether about her questions or lighthearted topics during breaks, and before I knew it, the time I spent with Yvonne had become irreplaceable. Your guidance is so helpful, Ralph. Yvonne's radiant smile as she said that was dazzling. Her presence had grown so significant in my life that I wanted to keep looking at her smile. Determined, I decided to invite her out. Yvonne. As I called out to her, she looked at me with clear, unwavering eyes, making my heart race and causing me to stumble over my words. If I don't push through now, when will I? Would you like to, have dinner with me after work today? I felt like my voice cracked near the end, but I was too anxious about her response to care. There was a brief silence. I knew it, she must think it's creepy for someone like me to ask her out. I'd love to. Please let me join you. Oh, sorry. I was so happy I couldn't help raising my voice. Her enthusiastic reply, louder than I'd ever heard, caught me off guard. Seeing her shyly cover her mouth in embarrassment, I felt a wave of relief. That's great. I was worried you'd say no. My honest feelings slipped out, fueled by extreme nervousness and relief. There's no way I'd turn you down. That would be unthinkable. It'd be like tempting fate. That's a bit dramatic. No, it's true. Turning down an invitation from Ralph would be a terrible mistake. As I chuckled at her exaggerated words, Yvonne stood up with such fervor that a small container on her desk nearly toppled over. Usually, she had a cool, intellectual demeanor, but moments like this when she revealed a different side of herself made me happy. I wasn't sure if this was her true self, but I enjoyed seeing this unexpected side of her. You don't have to flatter me so much. Don't worry, I'll treat you. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. Her flustered reaction was adorable. I may not have been the smoothest, but I was glad I asked her out. Given Yvonne's talent, her mentoring period would undoubtedly be brief. Once she became independent, we likely wouldn't have chances to talk like this anymore. That's why I wanted to spend as much time with her as I could now. The memories we made would give me the strength to move forward. That afternoon, under Howard's orders, Yvonne went out with Arthur to visit a client. It was probably a practice run, as she would gradually start visiting clients on her own. Noticing her preparing nervously for the outing, I offered her some encouragement. You'll be fine. It's natural to feel nervous on your first try, but Arthur will be with you. And it's a company we've had a long-standing relationship with. Just relax and do your best. Yes. I'll give it my all, keeping tonight's plans as my motivation. With a small fist pump and a cheerful "I'm off" directed at me, Yvonne greeted me before leaving the department with Arthur. A few hours had passed since the two left. The workday had long since ended, and one by one, everyone else had left the office. I stayed behind, silently working through a mountain of paperwork that Howard had dumped on me just before quitting time. Yvonne and Arthur still hadn't returned. After finishing the tasks from Howard, I checked my phone, but there were no messages. Maybe she didn't really want to go out with me after all. I waited a little longer but eventually gave up and started preparing to head home. When I stepped outside, the world was cloaked in darkness. The season was transitioning into winter. The excitement I had felt about my plans with Yvonne had completely cooled, and I trudged along the path to the station. As the biting cold pierced through me, I thought about stopping for a drink to warm up and began looking for a place I could enter. That's when I heard voices coming from a dimly lit alley ahead. I initially thought it might be a drunken brawl, but then considered the possibility that someone could be hurt, so I decided to take a closer look. The voices were those of a man and a woman. Ah, just a lover's quarrel, huh? As I began to relax my tense body and turn to leave, a loud female voice called out, "Stop it." Hearing the voices, I stopped in my tracks. Come on, I know a great place, and I've got a good hotel in mind too. The man's voice followed, and I immediately broke into a run. No! Let go of me. Hearing the woman's voice in distress, I dashed into the alley. Yvonne! Are you okay? Ralph! What the hell are you doing here? There they were, Yvonne and Arthur. Though it was dark and hard to see, I could tell Yvonne's body was trembling slightly. Seeing her like that, I felt a surge of anger and directed it at Arthur. What are you doing? Can't you see she's terrified? Arthur looked startled by my outburst, but his expression quickly twisted into annoyance as he raised his voice in return. This has nothing to do with you, I was just talking to Yvonne. Mind your own business. It's absolutely my business. I can't stand by while she's being mistreated. Our shouting drew the attention of passers-by, who began gathering to see what was going on. I didn't do anything wrong. Yvonne, we'll talk more tomorrow. Ralph, you'll regret this. With those words, Arthur hurried away, almost in a run. Damn it! Why is he here? He should still be at the office. Uncle, what are you doing? I thought I heard him muttering something as he left, but I turned my attention to Yvonne, who was gripping my arm from behind. Yvonne, are you okay? This place is dark and unsafe. Let's move somewhere brighter. Bowing my head in apology to the gathering crowd, I led Yvonne away to a bench near the station. I bought a warm cocoa from a nearby vending machine and handed it to her. Be careful, it's hot. Just holding it should warm you up a bit. I sat down next to her as she remained silent, her gaze cast downward. Thank you, Ralph. I'm sorry for the trouble I caused. Her voice was different from the usual Yvonne. The heaviness in her tone made my chest ache. You did nothing wrong, Yvonne. Please don't apologize, okay? I spoke in the gentlest voice I could. I didn't want to scare her any more than she already was. After we finished our visits, we were heading back to the office when Arthur invited me out for dinner. But I told him I couldn't because I had plans with you, Ralph. Still, he wouldn't let me go. He made a call. Then told me you were still working and suggested we wait nearby, so we ended up going for a drink. Yvonne continued, staring at the cocoa I'd handed her. But after a while, I knew it was getting late and said I needed to leave. I thanked him and told him I was going home. But as soon as we left the place, he led me into that alley. Her voice faltered, and her trembling grew more intense as the memory of the ordeal seemed to overwhelm her. He was scary, maybe it was the alcohol, but he grabbed my shoulder, and even though I kept refusing, I froze. I couldn't move. I was so scared. Hearing the pain and fear in her voice, I felt an overwhelming urge to help her. Yvonne, it must have been terrifying. I'm so sorry I didn't come sooner. When I spoke to her, Yvonne lifted her face. Her eyes were filled with tears. That's not true. Ralph, you saved me. When you showed up, Before she could finish, she clung to me, trembling as she sobbed. She must have been really scared. I gently patted her back until her tears and trembling subsided. After a while, Yvonne gradually began to calm down. I'm sorry. I've caused you so much trouble, Ralph. Don't worry about me. Are you okay? Yes. I'm fine now, because you stayed by my side. She said this with a soft smile. I was relieved. It's gotten so late. Let me walk you home. Can you stand? Oh no, you don't have to go that far. Even though the last train hadn't left yet, there was no way I could let a woman who'd been through such a scary experience go home alone. It's okay, don't worry about it. Think of it as part of my job as your mentor. Thank you. She stood up as we prepared to head to the station. Ralph. Yvonne's hesitant voice stopped me. What is it? Are you hurt somewhere? No, it's not that. It's about our dinner plans. You mean our promise to grab a meal together? Don't worry about it. I had been looking forward to it too, but after everything that happened, taking care of Yvonne was far more important. How about we go tomorrow instead? I'd really like to thank you for tonight. Sure. Of course. Yvonne's face lit up with a smile at my response. I thought her cheeks looked a little red, but it was probably just my imagination. The next day, when I arrived at the office, Yvonne was already there. We exchanged greetings, and I quietly observed her. She was her usual self, efficiently organizing her desk and preparing for the day's work. Relieved, I turned to my own desk and began my preparations. A little later, Howard and Arthur arrived together. It wasn't particularly unusual, but given what happened yesterday, I kept my eye on Arthur. Noticing my gaze, Arthur sneered, letting out a scoffing laugh as he looked at me with disdain. "All right, let's start the morning meeting." At Howard's announcement, everyone stood up. As usual, the morning meeting ended, and it was time to begin the day's work. But this day was different. Howard delivered shocking news. As you all know, our company is at a critical juncture right now. As part of this, we've been instructed to invite a few employees from each department to take early retirement. Early retirement. The word sent a ripple of unease through the department. Rumors that the company is struggling financially and in a difficult situation had been circulating for some time. Does anyone want to volunteer? Howard's gaze seemed to focus unnervingly on me as he spoke to the room. "Ralph, what do you think?" He followed his words with a sly smile, the kind that made my skin crawl. The room buzzed with murmurs at Howard's words. So that's what this is about. In the corner of my vision, I noticed Arthur smirking with the same expression as Howard. They really do look alike. I muttered under my breath. Though I didn't think anyone heard me, my slight movement caught Howard's attention. "Ralph, if you have something to say, speak up." "Let's hear it." Almost instantly, Arthur chimed in with his own taunt. "Even someone as clueless as you must know who's dragging this company down, right?" But before either of them could continue, Yvonne's voice cut through the room. "Wait a moment. Isn't this just manipulation, Howard and Arthur? This approach is completely unfair." Yvonne stepped forward, her defiance clear. "And are you seriously claiming that one underperformer can bring down an entire company this large? That's ridiculous. What you're doing right now is nothing but bullying." Even as Yvonne's impassioned protests echoed through the room, the smug smiles didn't leave Howard and Arthur's faces. "Oh, Yvonne, you've only just joined us. I wouldn't expect you to understand. But what about the rest of you?" Arthur glanced around at the gathered team. "As you all know, we need to select at least one volunteer from this department to meet the company's directive. So, who do you think is the most suitable candidate?" He raised his voice dramatically, as if giving some sort of rallying speech. "Everyone else, while they may not match my performance, is bringing in contracts and fulfilling their roles as part of the sales department. But in our team, there's one person who hasn't done anything." "Am I wrong?" At Arthur's prompting, everyone except Yvonne and me began exchanging glances and murmuring amongst themselves. "Well, Ralph does have the worst performance, after all. He's not a bad guy, but given the situation, you know? If he volunteered to leave, it might help everyone out, I guess." As their voices rose from various corners of the room, Arthur looked straight at me with a smug grin plastered across his face. Now he must finally realize he's the deadweight of this department. Useless Ralph quitting won't hurt the company at all. But once he's out of here, he won't survive on his own, and soon he'll be begging me, "Please, Arthur, don't let me go," and when that happens, Yvonne, who's strangely attached to him, will undoubtedly come my way instead. I could read Arthur's intentions clearly. He's so simple that his emotions are always written all over his face. Right now, he's probably imagining me groveling on the floor, begging for forgiveness. He's also likely still bitter about me helping Yvonne yesterday. This thought felt close to the truth, and I couldn't help but let out a sigh. "Ralph, your name has been mentioned. What do you think?" Howard's words, which seemed to encourage an answer without contradicting Arthur's remarks, solidified my decision. "Understood. I will resign from the company, effective today." As soon as I said those words, Howard's smirk grew even wider, and the others in the room visibly relaxed with relief. Arthur, however, was stunned. "You're really going to quit? Are you really that stupid?" As I suspected, my prediction was correct. He seemed genuinely panicked now that I had actually declared my intention to resign. Seeing this, Howard spoke up to address him. "Hey, Arthur. If he's willing to leave, that's great news for us, isn't it?" Howard likely thought this was the perfect outcome as he could follow orders from above while also getting rid of a so-called deadweight employee. Effectively killing two birds with one stone. That kind of thinking was typical of Howard. However, something unexpected occurred that threw his plans into disarray. "If Ralph is resigning, then I will also volunteer for early retirement." It was Yvonne who declared this. Both Howard and Arthur were visibly flustered by her statement. "No, Yvonne, that won't do. You're supposed to be one of our future stars. Besides, Ralph has already volunteered. There's no need for anyone else to. Yvonne, you don't have to follow Ralph. From now on, I'll personally guide you step by step." "Howard, earlier you mentioned recruiting a few people, didn't you?" "In that case, there should be no problem with me volunteering." Yvonne's determination was evident not only in her words but also in her resolute expression, leaving no doubt that she wouldn't change her mind. "I joined this company because Ralph was here. If he leaves, then I have no reason to stay either." Yvonne's declaration prompted an immediate reaction from Arthur. "Why are you so fixated on Ralph? He's just a useless, incompetent guy who can't do anything." As Arthur continued to disparage me, Yvonne let out a sigh. "Howard, Arthur, and everyone in this department, no, everyone in this company, fails to understand Ralph's greatness. He is the creator of the immensely popular app Pure Sleep, which he developed entirely on his own while working here, and upon its release, it became an instant sensation, leading to partnerships with numerous companies, achieving worldwide downloads, and reportedly generating over $1 million in revenue, making Ralph an exceptionally renowned figure in this field. And it was after reading an interview with him during my school years and being deeply inspired that I studied tirelessly to learn from him and apply to this company because he works here." As soon as the name Pure Sleep was mentioned, a wave of murmurs swept through the room. "Wait, the Pure Sleep app? I have it on my phone too. Yeah, everyone I know has it installed." Voices like these began echoing around the room. "But when I joined the development department, Ralph wasn't there. When I looked into it, I couldn't believe he was in the sales department. I thought, what is this company doing? And after seeing how they treat him, it's clear to me now. This company doesn't deserve someone like Ralph." The sound of Yvonne slamming her desk echoed through the room. "You may value my abilities, but I have no desire to work under people like you. I'm going to HR right now to officially submit my resignation." She began tidying up her desk with swift, efficient movements. Howard and Arthur were stunned into silence by Yvonne's words, but it was Howard who recovered from the shock first. "Ralph, if you're so talented, why didn't you say so earlier? Right now, our upper management is heavily focused on strengthening our systems. Surely, you'd be interested in contributing to that?" He came up to me, his greasy face close to mine, a complete change from his previous demeanor. "To say I'm not interested would be a lie. I do have ideas for improvements." "Oh, excellent. Excellent. Let's go talk to upper management together right away." How could he have possibly interpreted that as agreement? He was twisting my words to suit his narrative. "I've already declared my resignation. I can't help with anything." Howard, clearly unsatisfied with my response, pressed on. Wait. That's right, you submitted a transfer request to the development department, didn't you? I'll personally ensure it gets approved. I know it's been your long-standing dream since joining, hasn't it? In exchange, perhaps you could frame this as one of my achievements to management." So that's his angle. It was painfully obvious. After rejecting my transfer requests repeatedly, now he wanted to use it to his advantage? It's true that transferring to the development department was my dream. But not anymore. I'll say it again. I'm leaving this company. So, no. I can't help you. With that, I began packing my desk, just as Yvonne had done. Ralph! Please, reconsider. I'm begging you. Uncle! What are you doing? Bowing your head to someone like him? If Ralph can do it, then I'll handle this system whatever. I'll get it done in no time. Don't be ridiculous. Someone like you, who's all looks and completely hollow inside, could never handle system development. You can barely manage your sales work, and that's only because I've been pulling strings for you. Stop acting like you know anything. And don't jeopardize my promotion. I'm talented. Even you have no right to say that to me. I'll say it as many times as necessary. You're an idiot, and I don't have time to waste on a fool like you right now. While the two of them shouted back and forth, Yvonne and I quietly finished packing our belongings, bowed politely to our colleagues, and headed straight to HR. Our resignation process went smoothly. Goodbye to this company for good. Finally. Freedom at last. The start of a happy life. Indeed. Having the freedom to do anything is exciting. Ha ha. Yvonne, you're so optimistic. The two of us laughed together as we sat in a park near the office. Before moving forward, I turned to Yvonne and bowed my head. Yvonne, I'm sorry for dragging you into my resignation. Please don't apologize. Leaving the company was my own decision. It's true. I have no reason to stay in a company where you aren't. So don't worry about it. She smiled warmly. Under the bright sunlight, Yvonne's smile looked especially radiant. Thank you. I was so surprised to learn you really admired me. But hearing you stand up for me in front of everyone back there, it meant so much. It saved me. It made me realize there was someone who truly saw me. I had no place in the sales department. Though no one openly criticized me, they feared crossing Howard and Arthur, so no one ever stood up for me. But today's events had made everyone's feelings clear. Yvonne, however, was different. She was the only one who supported me. And that made me truly happy. Ralph. About what comes next? Yeah? Do you have an idea? Why don't we start a business together? 1 year later. After months of hard work, Yvonne and I successfully established a small system development company. With the help of our connections, we found collaborators and investors, and the business gradually began to thrive. But it wasn't just the work that was going well. Spending more time together brought Yvonne and me closer than ever, and I couldn't help but feel a growing bond between us. Thinking about her often brought a smile to my face. Ralph, what are you thinking about? Ah. Her sudden voice from behind startled me so much I let out a yelp. You were so deep in thought that you almost fell out of your chair. Is it that difficult of a case? Ah, no, well, something like that. But it's fine. I tried to brush it off, too embarrassed to let her know what I was really thinking. If you're at a good stopping point, why don't you take a break? My mother sent over some snacks. My stomach betrayed me with a growl. I realized I'd been so focused on work that I'd completely forgotten lunch. Hee hee, your stomach is always honest, Ralph. Let's have some tea. Yvonne gently took my hand and led me along. We sat facing each other, enjoying tea time together. By the way, have you heard about Howard and Arthur? Yvonne asked me as she gracefully poured tea. It had been a while since I'd heard those names. Yeah, I heard from the president, Mr. Matthews, recently. They both quit the company, didn't they? 3 months after starting our business, we'd been contacted by our former company for help. Since then, the company's performance had only worsened, showing no signs of improvement. The most critical issues were system vulnerabilities and a decline in employee morale, leading to leaks of confidential information, rampant harassment, and a series of fatal flaws for the company. Recognizing the urgent need for action, the first choice to address these problems was us. Mr. Matthews had heard of my work on the Pure Sleep app and learned the details surrounding my resignation. Along with an apology, they formally requested our help in overhauling the company's systems. After meeting with Mr. Matthews and the Vice President, Seth, whose sincerity impressed us, Yvonne and I agreed to take on the project under one condition: investigate Howard and Arthur's misconduct and uncover the extent of the harm they've caused. Trusting their promise of a thorough investigation and appropriate action, we worked tirelessly with other engineers to strengthen security, streamline operations, and implement robust information sharing systems. As a result, the company's reputation and performance began to recover. We've maintained a positive business partnership with them ever since. Recently, the investigation into Howard and Arthur was concluded, uncovering evidence of harassment, shady dealings with certain clients, and fraudulent accounting practices, resulting in their dismissal. Mr. Matthews apologized again, not only for the delay but also for past events, but knowing those two had been held accountable was enough for us. They were no longer a concern of ours. As I reached for the milk to enjoy the tea Yvonne had made, our hands accidentally touched. "Oh, sorry." "It's okay." From her hand resting on mine, I could feel Yvonne's emotions reaching out to me. If I was going to share my feelings, it had to be now. "Yvonne, thank you for staying by my side. I wouldn't be where I am today without you. Would you consider dating me with marriage in mind?" "Yes." "I love you too, Ralph." Her bright smile, the happiest I'd ever seen, filled my heart. We leaned closer to each other. From now on, together. And always supporting each other. On this day, we made a new promise and vowed to walk the future together. It's a day I'll always remember.